Hello, today we're going to create an Azure SQL database on our Azure platform. Right now, what I'm going to do is I already have an existing resource group. And I'm going to create a resource Azure SQL, and then we're gonna create a series of videos in which we're gonna create a dynamic application. In one of my previous videos, we created a static Azure web app, but this is continuing to that. We're gonna create an Azure SQL Server so that we can add a dynamic application and then see how the data operation, CRUD operation could be performed on there. So we're going to click on create, and then we're going to search for Azure SQL, and you'll see multiple options. We're going to select Azure SQL, and as we are going to be creating SQL databases, we want to go here. This is managed instance where um, if you are doing a lift and shift, meaning you have an on-premises SQL server and we want to move it to cloud, then this is the best. You can also create an SQL virtual machine, but for us, we are learning how to create a serverless application because that is quite a bit of savings on the overheads from the operation side. So let's click on create, and it's going to ask for a couple of things. I have my subscription and resource group selected already. I'm going to give a name here, um, and this needs to be a unique name. So we created a database name, and then now we need to select the server. We don't have a server, so we're going to click on create. Let's give it a name as well, and it needs to be unique across uh, the Azure. So, and I'm gonna use the Central US because that's a bit closer to me. Authentication mode. This is quite similar to what you do on your servers as well. I'm gonna use both SQL and Microsoft Eterna authentication. It's asking me to select an admin, so I'm gonna use my current account as an admin. So yeah, select, and then I'm gonna also select another account that I have as an admin. So now it asking for uh, the SQL authentications. We're going to have this available so that when we create a dynamic application, we will use that as a part of the connection string. You can also use Microsoft Eterna and allow the services to call it in itself. But to make it easier for everyone, we're going to just create an server admin, a SQL Server admin password as well. So here we're going to say, and then we're going to create a password that is secured. So, and then I'm going to click on OK. So it did create the database, or it's going to create the database. Now, what are we going to use this for? I'm going to say we're going to use this for development, and then this allows us to show, okay, how much it's going to cost us. We're going to use the standard purpose, but obviously you can make your own configuration. So here it says what are the configurations that we're going to have, how many cores are we going to need, max and min, and then what's the size of the database that we are expecting. So for here I'm going to change it to 10 gigabytes because it's too big. We don't need that much. And then I'm going to click on apply. There are several different options that you can look into, but this is just to have 101 on how to create an Azure SQL Server. So now I clicked on OK. I don't want this to be redundant across any other areas. So this is going to be locally redundant. And then I'm going to click on next, networking. So do I want this to be accessed over internet or not? So for now, I'm going to keep the selection as no access. But once I create a new Azure web app, I'm going to whitelist that IP address. And also, you might need to whitelist the IP address for connect for your development machines and stuff like that, or your office IP address in a case. For now, I'm going to keep it as no access. Then I'm going to click on security. I'm going to keep everything as is, and then click on settings. No changes. You can do the backups and stuff, but right now I'm gonna just keep it as is. Tags, whatever tags you want to give, env, test, created by Anand Patel, and so on and so forth. So whatever you your company or your organizations had defined to on the tags that you want for each environment, you can add as many tags as you want. And then I'm going to click on next, and it's showing me the summary. I'm going to click on create, and it might take a couple of minutes to deploy that Azure SQL Server. Once it is deployed and available, um, what we could do is whitelist an IP address, so that we can connect it from our SQL Management Studio from your workstation. In a couple of minutes, I'll show you how to do that as well. But for now, I'm going to pause the video until this is deployed successfully. So it took a minute or so to get everything deployed. So now we can click on go to resources, and we'll be able to see what everything is available. So let's go to Anand Patel, and we're gonna see, okay, there is a SQL Server as you always have, and then there is a database. So on SQL Server, we can go into there, and then we can look for the networking. So here is the networking. In networking, we can say, okay, we want to allow to have a connection from a selected network. So from a selected network, this is my current public IP address. So I want to say, okay, I want to add that to um, I want to add that IP address to be whitelisted, and it can create or it can make a connection to the SQL to the SQL Server, Azure SQL Server. Okay, I'm gonna click on Save. Now I'm gonna open SQL Management Studio and make a connection. So give it a minute. Give me a minute. Okay, so I have opened the SQL Management Studio, and now we're gonna make a connection to our Azure SQL Server that we created. So I'm going to click on connect, and then um, this is the server name. I'm going to use the authentication as SQL authentication. So where did you get this thing from? So this is there are a couple of ways you can find that information. Here is the information, the server name that you got. In general, it is the server name that you gave during the creation of the database, followed by .database .windows.net. And there's a reason, as I mentioned, that this name should be unique across Azure. So now we're going to go back. I'm going to put in my password that I used during the creation of this. So there we go. And then I'm going to paste a password. And now I'm connected to my Azure SQL server that I created. So if I open this database, has no tables. I can go ahead and create a table if I wanted to, and then we can see how it works. So here's ID, and then we're gonna give it a name, and this is a primary key. Set primary key, and then we're gonna have an identifier type. You want to change that first. Let's change this to int. And then we're going to change the identifier to be yes and start with 1, and then we need to give the name. So that's a database that we have created now, and you can create tables and relationship as you do on your any SQL server. So that's a bit of a quick intro to the Azure SQL Database.